Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. Today, I'm very happy to bring back my insightful panel with Ryan Patrick Burns and Gary Michael May-McGill. Before we start, let me tell you a little bit about them. Ryan Patrick Burns began researching the Uintah Basin and the mysterious Skinwalker Ranch years ago, but when his passion for answers could no longer be quenched, he left his corporate job in Salt Lake City and moved to the desolate and remote basin to investigate the ranch full time. Ryan now owns property overlooking the ranch, and he hosts the popular podcast called Hero Paranormal. And he has also written about his experiences investigating Skinwalker. Gary Michael May-McGill is an American actor, entertainer, singer, songwriter, filmmaker, comedian, producer, editor, activist, psychic medium, and his mission is to spread love into the universe. His YouTube channel is called Camp G-May, and it is an original music video jukebox, an elaborate mixture of Gary, Michael May, and Tribe Sunshine. Gary, Michael May McGill also hosts an open mic jam live stream 7 p.m. to midnight PST every Saturday night. Everyone is welcome to play a tune on the open mic virtual stage or just hang out and make friends. Camp Gmail and Gary Michael also host live virtual festivals and concerts, and he is always looking for new artists to join and collaborate. Today, we're going to talk about the Great Pyramids. All of the links are featured below in the description. Please do check me out, subscribe to my channels, leave me a comment, like my videos, and please do share my content with your friends. And I'm happy to announce that you can now join my YouTube channel and you can take advantage of my perks and help to support my work. So without further ado, let's bring on Gary and Ryan to the stage. Hi, guys. So nice to have you back.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Ryan, good to see you, brother.
Good to see you, Gary.
Nice. Oh, Karen, the Great Pyramids, huh?
Yeah, well, there's been some really interesting recent developments. And, ever since I was younger, I've always been interested in Egypt things and Egyptology and pyramids and stuff, but I never bought the story that these were just burial tombs for kings with inflated egos way back in the days of the Egyptians. I never bought that. I
Yeah.
could always see that there were some kind of technology. And what's interesting is that technology is duplicated all over the world, a little bit different forms, but definitely what we call monolithic. And now, I guess because the powers that be, they won't let people really get in there and investigate what these huge megalithic structures are all about. But now, through new technology from satellite, they've been able to discover some cool stuff. So I just want to give Ryan and Gary a chance. If there's anything I missed in the introduction, please feel free to share. And I'm wondering how you would like to poke and prod at this topic today.
Ryan?
This is a tough one because I get weary and excited when these types of things are questioned. And, we have to look at this through a geological perspective, because I have to say I'm officially on the fence when it comes to this. And it would be fantastic if what they are alleging is true. If this is the case, this would be amazing to have these pillars, columns, and other seemingly very deep scenarios taking place below the pyramids. But until there's actual proof, it's just an ordinary claim. Now, that being said, I'm with you, Karen, that I believe there is something special about them. I don't believe they're tombs. And I believe many of the pyramids have underground structures, including chambers, tunnels, and shafts, subterranean aspects. And I've talked to a couple of experts on the pyramids, and they both have different ideas, but I kind of go with both ideas. And that is that something that big would not be built unless it had a purpose, right? They wouldn't get involved, whether it's people or anything else, wouldn't get involved unless these things had a purpose. One gentleman is Stephen Meyer, and he has a website known as thepump.org, where he runs the Pharaoh's Pump Foundation, how and why the Great Pyramid was built. And he's got some really interesting examinations of research, examining how and why it may be built. The other gentleman is Jeffrey Drum, who theorizes that the different Egyptian pyramids had specific chemical production roles, which may have actually worked hand in hand with this pump idea. And I wouldn't doubt that there may have been even other roles that these massive structures were designed to do, whether they're industrial or chemical or other different purposes. I would think if you're going to put this much time and effort into something, it's got to be pretty magical.
Yeah, that's true. You know, for me, I think this is like our fourth, fifth podcast together. And I always say the same thing from the beginning. I always say like, hey, I can only really assess on what I know and my experiences. And, the first experience I had with pyramids, of course, was in the late 70s with, of course, the Chariot of the Gods, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their claim basically was that aliens built these things because not only are they in Egypt, but they're like all over the world. They're in South America, and they all have like the same blueprint, And so, back then we didn't have internet and this and that. And so you fast forward to today, and of course, we're talking about this new groundbreaking, these Italian researchers that say that there's this underground city underneath these things, basically, that go almost like 4,000 feet underground, right? But all you really get is like these CGI or these diagrams. You don't actually get, like Karen says, they're not allowing people to actually go in there with like a real camcorder and like film everything. So it's a little disheartening, because why wouldn't you do that? Well, probably because you're covering something up, right? Karen?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have a couple different theories. Now, some people claim that Denise, who's here in the live chat, she says, I believe the pyramids were built by aliens. Do you? Now, that is one theory I've heard, but that only makes sense if we discount how amazing human beings could have been at one time. So, you know how we're told that we evolved out of monkeys and this is the smartest we've ever been that we are today? Well, I don't believe that. And based on what I have learned from my encounters with ET, is that we have always been technologically extremely advanced and have been systematically dummied down with complete destructions and resets of reality. So there's that whole mess there that I'll just put down in front of you guys. But then another one to pick up is the whole Mandela effect. were those columns below the pyramids always there? Or is this a Mandela effect that we're seeing, that we've slipped timelines somehow and we're in a different reality? And perhaps some of these other megalithic structures will also have information that never showed up before. I don't know. And then I guess another greasy plate to throw in front of you guys is the whole concept of AI, which makes it really difficult to tell the heck is really going on. I've left a big dog's breakfast for you guys, but those are just some of my initial thoughts and the way my mind tends to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shape of the pyramid is something magical too. And, you know, this is an argument that for whatever reason, this shape has a ton of meaning. The numerology involved, and numbers correlating to the speed of light when it comes to the pyramids. I'm sure you guys have looked at all the secret meanings behind these. There's and I mean, the pyramid is so important to me. I always wear a ring that has a pyramid on it because
Wow. Look at that. Can we get a close up on that, Karen?
Yeah, it is the strongest, the very strongest shape. And not only is it
again.
See that ring, baby? Nice.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's on our dollar bill.
Yes.
It is, you know, and these pyramids in Egypt also had capstones that were separated and had different coloration than the rest of the pyramid, which, as your guest mentioned, you know, resembles the eye of providence, the cabal, the capstone being different than what is below it. In other words, a separation from the foundation below and the magical meaning of the point above, kind of alluding to the fact that, yeah, there's something at the top of every organization. There's a reason they call them pyramid schemes, right? There's something at the top of every organization, religion, government body, whatever the case may be. And that separated capstone, as we see on our dollar bill or the capstones in Egypt, that gives us the impression that there's a difference between those at the top and those at the bottom, and they may not even be the same thing. In other words, there could be a non-human intelligence at the top of at the top of a lot of these things, and they may be actually upheld by the rest. So I think there's a lot there, and your guest had a good point.
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. You know, for me, it's like whenever there's something that they can't really explain or don't have the actual evidence, it's always a mystery, right? And that just explains it away. Oh, what? It's just a mystery, right? But when you really look at the science of it, it's like 3 million stones, 6 million tons. You know, when you look at physics and this and that, they claim that there were 100,000 slaves, laborers that helped build these things. That's the rationale behind it, the story behind it. So some of these stones were so big that it's almost mathematically impossible to raise them at a level at the height that they had to go, like whether it was on a pulley or on ropes and they're sliding it up a thing. You can't, there's not enough people in the world that could pull that stone up there. See what I'm saying? So that's why the whole alien thing is it had to be some type of something that helped move these stones. Right? I mean, that's my biggest thing is it's like the actual science behind it. And then they won't actually say this or that. They'll just say, oh, it's a mystery, Ryan. Right? So,
you know, the word pyramid actually means fire in the middle. That's what it actually means. And we've used pyramids in many different applications because they absorb energy, they concentrate energy, they retune energy, and they send energy out the top. So there's even been lots and lots of images of the Great Pyramids showing different I guess, temperatures or frequencies of information. So there's been that whole thing. And then I think too, we're no stranger to the idea of anti-gravitic technologies. So let's just stick with, what Joe said about how wouldn't be surprised if man was technologically advanced and then came the collapse. There might have been a time where we were really familiar with the shape of the pyramids, and they were designed that way with a purpose, which is why I tend to think of them as a technology. And also anti-gravitic, they could have used that. That makes a lot of sense. Of course, there's the whole idea of giants and tons of evidence. I even had a guy on my show a while ago who worked for the Smithsonian, and he verified that they do take all the giant bones and they're buried along with all kinds of other what we would consider anomalies below the Smithsonian, that they actually exist. He's seen them himself. So, it's really hard to figure out what's real and what's not and what could have been and what's going to be. But I do know that there seems to be an effort to prevent the common people from finding out the deeper truths about the Great Pyramids. But it seems that more information is coming out now. I personally think that humans were very much advanced. In fact, I think that the planet's been reseeded, according to my intel, 5 times. And that seems to be consistent with many other experiencers and researchers. Each time, we were already very intelligent when we got here. Now, there might have been other beings that came to the planet who were more advanced, but that doesn't take away from our own personal advancement. And then who knows, maybe we just went into other dimensions or other places. I don't know. So I don't have any answers, guys. This is just how my mind works and it comes out my mouth. And, I don't know if it's helpful or not, but that's sort of my take on it.
It's very helpful, Karen.
Thank you.
I think so. And like Gary was saying, these things, we're expected to think that these are all just, like he said, mysteries, coincidences. And they're not. Even the word pyramid, the numerology, and, back then, they want us to believe, as you said, Karen, that people were very basic, that they were chiseling this stuff with rudimentary tools, moving it with, copper tools.
Right.
And they had to replace a chisel after every cut. It's like, no, there's probably something else going on here.
Right.
And
you need 10 million chisels, right?
At least 10 million chisels. And the latitude of the Great Pyramid of Giza being 29.9792 degrees north.
Right.
And then, of course, the speed of light in meters per second is 299,792. So this is the same number. And we find the same thing in modern days as well. The I won't go into the Twin Towers and demolition of that, but the One World Trade Center is 1,776 feet tall. That's 1776. That's the same date that our country was founded and the same date that the Illuminati was founded. So they expect us to just kind of accept these things. Like they're just coincidence.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery.
Yeah, it's like on The Wizard of Oz when the dog pulls back the curtain and there's an old man with his wheels and his dials and he's going, "Don't look at the man behind the curtain. I am the mighty Oz." When you tie that into us possibly living in a simulation or holographic universe, it makes me wonder who's pulling the levers, because of all the coincidences of like what you were just mentioning, heights of buildings and dates and corresponding. Like really, it does read like a poorly written novel somehow.
Yeah. I like the point that Ryan made, that a lot of it is really symbolic too. The whole pyramid thing, because it goes into religion, it goes into everything. The Trinity, it's on our dollar bill. The compartmentalization of knowledge too is another underlying theme, because we all know, look, up until like the 50s, technology was like barbaric. We had nothing. And supposedly, when they found these UFOs that crashed, they were able to get integrated circuit board, the digital medium, lasers, fiber optics, all
Yeah.
these, technologies that they didn't just give you all at once. Like when they found all these in the 50s and 60s, they could have gave you an iPad, boom, right there. But they didn't. The first thing they gave you was that watch with the red
Transistor
LED.
and the transistor radios.
Right. Remember that? Did you have one of those red LED watches where that's all it was, And then you get this and you get that, and they keep just compartmentalization until, because they want you to keep buying everything. They have all the knowledge they need now, but they don't want to give it to you all at once. They want to give it to you in compartmentalization, pyramid form. So the point is that this pyramid symbolic, it's a lot more powerful than you can even imagine.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Oop, you're muted, Ryan.
Apologies for that. Yeah,
okay.
I just wanted to agree with Gary. There's a lot to it. The mythology, the magical reality of the pyramid. And if you imagine coming in and seeing these things back when they were in their glory days, because now they're fairly run down. We don't see their, other than tourism, we don't see their real value. So they're not kept up the way they used to be. But according to all scholars, these things used to be just shined up, gleaming. They would reflect the light and very much have the fire within them. And who knows what else they would do. And this is a land that was known for alchemy. Even Egypt, it's known as the land of chem, ancient alchemy. That's why we have Egyptian mystery schools. That's why most every organization is in the shape of a pyramid. It has those who govern above and the foundation levels below. And there's the levels. The iconic structures were actually, in my opinion, reactors of some sort, whether they were energy reactors, water pumps, chemical reactors. They were foundational to the power that Egypt held. And somehow this just got lost. We just, and it's sitting there in plain sight. That's what's mind blowing, is it's right. Like, it's just there. Yeah.
The other thing that really amazes me is how when there's been so many wars and they bomb the hell out of these amazing structures. So not just like, I don't know who shot the nose off the Sphinx, but it's all over the world, bombing and trying to destroy it. When you go down the rabbit trail of Tartaria and the other amazing structures that are some still with us today in every capital city around the world, I don't know, I just think that there's a lot that's been where they've attempted to destroy it. Now that AI's come out more advanced, I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if AI could go back and read all the cuneiform writings and all the really ancient texts, what we have left, and come up with some kind of a story for us that might explain the origins of the pyramids. I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I think you got something there. I mean, these things were so well built. It's the oldest of the 7 wonders of the world and the only one still surviving, for nearly,
I wonder,
4,000 years almost. And it's the tallest human-made structure in the world. And like you said, nothing seems to be able to, I mean, eventually, yes, they will sadly disappear. But the complexity involved here, there was something. And obviously, if you look at the internals of the pyramid, the strange, I mean, they make zero sense. These 45-degree caverns going down. Some are too small for people. Some are too big for people. There's only stairs in certain portions. It is an engineering nightmare as far as people trying to figure out what this was designed to do. The one thing I think we can all agree on is there's no tombs in any of them. And yet that is exactly the way that they sell them to us. Is these are just really elaborate gravestones with, come on, like there's so much going on here.
Yeah, you're also too, you're going to remember that I don't really know if they ever will let anyone really know the truth, because they're always it's always going to be distracted. It's always going to be, aliens built it. The residents of Atlantis built it. Oh, they were used to keep grain. Noah built them after the flood. I mean, all these like wacky stories that just kind of throw you off and get you back into that whole mystery thing, instead of actually saying, hey, look, it's impossible to do this or do that. And we're going underneath these things with cameras, and you don't get that. You know what I mean? It's mind boggling.
And I just want to throw one really quick thing in here.
No, you don't have to be quick. Go for it.
I'm also, fascinated by the people I've talked to that have gone into the pyramids in times you're not supposed to be there. Because if you grease enough palms, you can get in there at night and these sorts of things. And they say that there is a significant difference when you're in there at night. And it reminds me of Aleister Crowley, nobody's favorite guy, but a prominent occultist with a strong fascination of Egypt, who basically had a magical incantation on his honeymoon. And this took him down this crazy journey in life to create a whole religion, the Ordo Templo Orientis, write the Book of the Law, start the OTO and Thelema. And I mean, basically someone who ended up calling himself the Beast 666 because of all these connections that started with him trying to impress his then wife during their honeymoon, being a magician and doing an incantation in the pyramid, and basically getting his socks knocked off. Like he couldn't handle the energy that took place there. But I think that may be more along the lines of maybe how this thing was designed to be used.
Might quite well be. I'm just going to read off a couple of the comments from the chat. Joe Sapiens says the fundamental principle of physics is frequency and resonance. I don't know how to articulate what I'm saying, but I can. Yeah, more and more of us are starting to wake up to that whole idea of reality. Denise says maybe Bigfoots were around then, not being funny, but they could lift those stones. Again, we weren't around to see it. Maybe. I don't know.
Right.
And then Joe says, technology is a power, but with great power comes great responsibility. And with absolute power comes absolute responsibility.
Yeah.
I'd say don't fear technology, use it responsibly. Good points from the chat. Very good.
Very good point, Joe.
Yeah. So, we're all guessing. None of us knows for sure. And the powers that be that are keeping this information from going public, um, I don't know. I don't know how long they'll be able to keep doing that, to be honest with you. I think there's a whole lot of changes ahead, not just on the political front, but a lot of different ways. I'm not really sure. But I do know that this recent revealing of these chambers that go down, and they're not just short. Like I think all the experts could agree that they couldn't have been man-made. And although if they were short, they might have been man-made, but with the length, I think it's something like over 2 miles below the pyramids that these tubes run, and then they terminate in these big square blocks. I actually had some videos to show you during the show, and I can't quite make them work properly, so I apologize for that. And then there's supposed to be a city underneath. And this is not the only place with underground cities. There's underground cities everywhere. So that's another thing that makes me kind of go, wonder what's going on here.
Yeah.
And those underground cities really are everywhere. I recently went out to Boston and Pennsylvania, and I was shocked that on a lot of these tours of like ancient sites and ancient buildings, even past homes of people like our founding fathers, like Benjamin Franklin, they're like, oh yeah, this is Benjamin Franklin's house. And below it, you can see other levels of, is that the basement? No, that's not the basement. That was another building that they built this on. And talk about mud floods coming to mind. That's another thing. These pyramids seem to have withstood everything, including floods. And I don't think that this mystery group of beings known as the giants or the Nephilim, I don't think that's silly at all, what was said. I think alternatively, these were beings of authority and things that had to be dealt with that are mentioned in all kinds of canon, the Bible, Jewish texts, Genesis. They're called the fallen ones. These, you didn't just come across these unscathed. And if they were as big as they claim they were, it wouldn't take a whole heck of a lot of them to move big blocks, right? That's a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing too, Ryan, is that you have all these wild conspiracy theories on how these things were built. There's a zillion of them. There's the Noah thing, because if you remember correctly, there were what called the Watchers. They were giants that helped them build the ark. And these are like, 100 times the size of a human, So there's some people that say that a bunch of those Watchers helped build these. They were like fallen angels from the aliens or whatever. So like I said, you just never know until we're allowed to really investigate it. I think what gets me the most, and we started talking about this at the beginning, Karen, is these underground cities underneath them. It makes it actually 10 times larger than the actual pyramid itself. Yet we have no footage on it. All we get is a picture of the pyramid with this big diagram underneath it, right? That's all you get. You don't get footage of it. So another wild conspiracy, right? To keep you distracted, I guess. I don't know.
And this giant thing, even if you go back to wild tales of the Anunnaki, and we're talking about ancient, very similar to the pyramids, like the ziggurat of Ur, the oldest construction, in modern day Iraq. I would love to see this thing. I mean, this is like as far back as we can go where humans actually left traces of society, government, law. And they literally, the only reason we know that is because they wrote it in stone. So something stuck. They weren't keeping all this stuff in the cloud like we do, where if we get obliterated, there's absolutely no fingerprint of us whatsoever. This stuff was all written in stone, and the ziggurat of Ur is still there. And, the Anunnaki, they were said to be different than the humans, that they came from somewhere else, that they had this ability to do things that they saw as magic, which we could call alchemy. And they could make things like crops, and the people benefited from them being here, but there was kind of this trade-off, right? There was like, they were using us. We just weren't exactly sure how and why. And I have a feeling that some of that might still be going on. And maybe that's why some of these secrets are held so mysteriously close to the chest.
Like in the Vatican archives below the Vatican, there's miles and miles and miles of information that's been kept separate from us. In fact, it was only 100 years ago or whatever that they started to even do their sermons in English. Before that, it was all in Latin so that nobody could understand any of it. It's getting ridiculous. And on the one hand, like the political front of the earth right now, boy, that can really knock you off your center, and you can get involved in partisan politics and all of that. And then you forget all about all these other amazing things that we don't have answers to, or that we want to think about. We forget about all of that. Or we could be so concerned about, oh God, who knows, economics. I mean, there's so many rabbit holes that you can go down that completely squash the wonderment that's on this planet. And even if we don't have absolute facts on who built the pyramids, when they were built, things like that, the wonderment that we keep talking about it and thinking about it and guessing, and that's a beautiful part of being alive, that makes me actually really glad that I can go down these rabbit holes.
And sorry I got up. That was a great point. I wanted to grab something off my shelf, which is actually this pyramid that has the realistic depictions of the writings, and back to the Anunnaki, back to the old gods, and the belief that there was, well, for lack of a better word, like Atlantis, that there was genetic manipulation taking place by some of these entities. Obviously, we have like Anubis, who had the head of a dog. We have, these, I guess you would call them genetic abominations, right? Or creations that were also said to be gods. And this is funny because I actually got this back in like 2014, and it's actually an urn. So this will actually be what I'm buried in. But it is, back to the reality of what the pyramid signifies. There is something to the belief that that structure has a way, as I know you're very familiar, Karen, when you're dealing with orgone energy or any of that, when you have the pyramid shape, you get like an exponential exaggeration of that energy. You get more energy. And there was a very famous article that came out about Nicolas Cage and how he was like having tax problems. And I know the guy that actually sold him, like when he has a house here in Vegas that would sell him all of his sports cars. He was having tax problems. He was buying sports cars. He didn't have enough money to pay the bills. And he still like went into debt to buy this huge pyramid to be buried in. And everybody said, why would he do this? And it's because it was the only one of its kind. And according to Nicolas Cage, you could go down all the weird Nicolas Cage conspiracies. He thought that was the most important thing at the time, not getting right with his bills or the IRS or, the car note. But that's kind of, you have to wonder if there's more to the whole pyramid structure and what it represents, because Pythagoras, who is very much a pyramid lover, is sort of noted as being the father of Freemasonry too, which again goes back to the Egyptian mystery schools. And Freemasonry utilizes the pyramid wildly. And of course, many people believe that they may be the Masons who built the pyramids and know some of these secrets.
Yeah.
Good point. Good point. I just want to share from the chat. Joe says, I heard some underground cities are so huge that they have big gardens and gigantic TV screens displaying simulated skies. Fascinating.
Wow.
Well, what I think is interesting is actually there's a lot of evidence that there's underground cities that they appear to be abandoned. But it seems to me that for humanity to survive the ebb and flow of the planet, the natural expansion, contraction, geological disasters, it makes sense that we would have to go. Subterranean. So that doesn't surprise me at all. I have to laugh, though, because there's been lately quite a bit of information out about the richest of the rich building these subterranean cities for themselves,
Yeah.
and bunkers and homes and stuff. And I'm laughing because to me, the worst possible thing is for them to all be stuck in a confined space with each other.
Yeah, they're all doing it too, Karen.
Yeah, and I'm not meaning to laugh, but I am laughing because that might be a fate worse than death, might be worse than what we would ever encounter on the surface. I don't know. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
It's a really good point, because if this is not the first time that the earth has been reset, whether it's a global flood or whatever, there's a lot of historical text talking about people going down under, going subterranean, whether it's fictional like H.G. Wells in The Time Machine talking about the Morlocks, right? Or even maybe the Nephilim trying to escape the Great Flood. And even if you go into indigenous cultures, they believe that first man and first women rose up from the earth as if they were hiding down there from something. And so I don't know. I don't think it's the first time we've bunkered up. And I can't think of anything worse than being bunkered up with a bunch of billionaires.
Well,
Bunch of pervert billionaires, pardon me for saying.
Well, not only are the
Had to say
billionaires, not only are the billionaires going underground, but even the governments are building massive, like I heard that. And like I said, it could just be a distraction, but like underneath the Denver airport,
Yeah.
it goes like 31 stories below, and they're building a tram from the San Francisco airport to the Denver airport. Did you hear that one?
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. And it's probably happening a lot of other places than just Denver and San Francisco, right? So not only is it being funded by billionaires, but it's being funded by governments too,
And
which
taxpayers.
correlates with this whole pyramid thing. I mean, they say it goes like 4,000 feet underground, the pyramids. Another interesting thing too is I would have to find it. I have a book somewhere. I got to find it in a bunch of boxes. I found it a long time, like maybe 30, 40 years ago at just a bookstore, because we all know now, like Ryan has all his books, right? And that's where you usually would get information. We all know now that history according to Google, right? I mean, that's what it's became. So it's kind of manipulated by that instead of actual real, book stuff. But anyway, it was a book. It was called Pyramid Power. And I forget the author, but what they claimed is that the pyramids at one time, because the way they're positioned, when you point one end towards the north, one end towards the south, one end towards the east, west, the north, you have gold plated. The south, you have silver plated. The west, you have copper. And I forget what the other one was, but this conducts some type of energy And when the celestial belt comes around through the top, just like how they have it on the money with the eye at the top, this is where the energy was almost like a channeled the energy, you know, like an antenna type thing. I don't know if you guys heard of that whole situation theory.
Yeah. Lisa says it's by Greg Nielsen, for those that want to look for that book. I just want to take a minute to make sure that I've said hi to everybody in the live chat. I want to say hi. Okay, we said hi to Denise and Joe Sapien. Jason H., nice to have you here. Lisa Noel, lovely to have you here.
Big shout out to Lisa Noel.
Awesome. And I just want to take a minute to remind the people in the live chat that I am having a free giveaway at the end of June. So every time you come and you're physically here for the live shows, which are on Wednesdays and Sundays, and I make a list of everybody who shows up in the chat. And the more times you show up, the more times you get a tick mark. And then I'm going to do a bit of a lottery at the end of June, and I'm going to do a giveaway, and I'm going to give away, one of my orgone generator pyramids. I'm going to give away stickers. I'm going to give away all kinds of things. Probably a classic, a mug from when my show Aliens and Angels first started, a classic. So I didn't mean to interrupt the conversation. I just wanted to mention it while everybody is still here, so that those in the live chat could know. And for those that are listening on the replay, you might want to come over and join the live chat so you can be in the contest. And I just wanted to read. Denise says, Ryan, was his name Dr. Hannigan, who wrote Pyramid Power? Maybe it was you, Gary, who mentioned Pyramid Power.
I'm not sure. Like I said, it was a very interesting book because they actually said if you actually made a pyramid and then made one side gold and silver and this and that and faced it just at the right time, at the right this and that you could actually channel energy from it. So, and then we all know too that this, they actually have that type of pyramid thing that you don't need electricity, this and that. It's like free energy, and it comes from actually a pyramid shaped device, just like the pyramids that is used as like an antenna to draw in energy. So it's just crazy. Yeah. But who wants that when I can send you a PG&E bill every month, right?
Yeah, they're talking a lot about oil and gas and wind farms and solar solar panels. But when you look into it, you find out that those wind farms, they're not sustainable. You can't recycle the materials. We're finding out that the components for making these solar panels are coming from slave labor and all kinds of stuff, hard again to recycle. Oil and gas is not without its problems, but really, I believe we're at a time where we can learn from the Great Pyramids and other sources about free and abundant energy. I even had a vision of the future where we would have a small device that we would wear on our body, and it would take all the excess energy, because we waste energy all the time. We produce heat and all kinds of things that we waste energy, and it can convert that, and that powers all of our devices. So I think we can learn, if we could get accurate information about the pyramids, first of all, if we could have our experts go in and do the research, find out what's really there, what's not there, or sort of figure out how it works. So many things we could advance humanity beyond our wildest dreams. And I don't think, this is just a personal opinion, that AI, with all its bells and whistles, I don't actually believe that it has our best interests at heart. I think AI has been programmed and is governed by, another force. Let's just put it that way, whether it's people with money or technology or whatever. Who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows?
Joe made another good point right here.
Yeah, he says the pyramids harnessed earth energy frequency through the tubes, and up in the chambers, notice that they are on the ley lines, the points of the geometric shape that the harnessed energy forms. Yes.
I really like that. There's a great book called The Giza Power Plant by Christopher Dunn. It was put out quite a while ago, but he does a great job of being very controversial, showing exactly this, the deliberate precision to maximize acoustic qualities, that there may have been technology that was utilizing resonance, and that this was a remnant of that technology, but right along what was just said there in the chat. And I wanted to point out also that when it comes to pyramids, it's not just mystery schools and it's not just buildings that it's the strongest. Like when people have issues, like when people go off track, whether they're gamblers or addicts or anything, there's a lot of pyramid mythology involved with recovery programs, and there's 12 steps, and then there's to regain this. And interestingly, Carl Jung, or I guess it was Jung, I'm saying it incorrectly, Carl Jung said that the pyramid, well, actually, let me back up. His actual quote was that when people have these issues, they have to go through a number of steps because these were lower manifestations of man's necessity to have conscious contact with the higher power. So if they were gambling or sex addicts or addicted to other substances, these were lower manifestations for man's need for conscious contact with a higher power. And, when it comes to like these 12-step programs, when it comes to a lot of the pyramid, and they use the pyramid as well as symbology for that. But back going to like some of the strange numerology with other buildings, and I'll use the Twin Towers this time as an example. They did a demolition, a key step in preparing the site for the Twin Towers. And the demolition, they cleared out 13 blocks is what they called them, 13 blocks. 12 of them were essential for the footprint of the Twin Towers. And they did the groundbreaking on 3/22, which is, of course, like Order Skull and Bones or Genesis 3/22. And that's very interesting. It was March 22nd. And you'll find this over and over again, whether it's with demolition preparing for the building, beginning something, many times the cornerstones that are used for many of these important buildings, like in Washington, D.C., the shapes, all of DC is very esoteric and mystery school and Egyptian based. And all of this is alluding to the fact, as Gary said, to the mystery, right? We know something you don't know. And even when you go and buy, speaking of like a dozen, and then there's like the mystery 13, even when you go and buy a dozen donuts, there's a baker's dozen, right? Where you get 13 if you know the guy. And I think that's kind of, we see these numbers pop up over and over again, whether it's Jesus and the 12 disciples. Anyway, it goes on and on, the 12s, the 13s, the dozens. It's fascinating.
That's a great point, Ryan. Absolutely great point. That again, that compartmentalization of knowledge And then when you get to the top, when you're down here at the lower levels, you need to graduate and get the information to get up to the top so that you can get with the higher level of consciousness, you know? So that was a great point, man. I'm going to go get a baker's dozen donuts now.
Yeah,
It
they
does
used to
sound
give
good.
everybody a baker's dozen. That way, if they miscount, you're not short one. Yeah. The good old days before everything was factories and chemicals, and we won't get into that maybe on another podcast.
There you go.
So, yeah, so we've covered quite a bit today. We've been all around, we've looked at all kinds of aspects of the pyramids, what they might be physically, what they mean symbolically, all kinds of things. I want to give you each a few minutes to just add whatever maybe we didn't get to that you would like to talk about in closing out. And then I also want to hear about what each of you is up to, whether it's music concerts or research you're doing or what you're doing on your shows and your websites and all that kind of good stuff. I want you to tell everybody what you're up to as well, please.
Okay, I'll take it. And, really quickly as we wrap up, though, I want to point something. One of my favorite stories about pyramids, and specifically like the Great Seal of the United States, which has the pyramid and the all-seeing eye above it.
Mm-hmm.
And when our founding fathers were meeting to create these symbolic representations that were going to form this new country, this new world order, they didn't know what to use for the Great Seal. And they were at odds on, something that would describe it. And there is a story about the Great Seal of the United States that they kind of had to take a break. It got heated. And one of the gentlemen stepped outside, and a man in a robe who came out of the darkness with a seal. And it was exactly, that seal that we see on the Great Seal of the United States, with the pyramid, the separated capstone, and the all-seeing eye, and gave it to him. And he took it inside and said, "Hey guys, no lie, some guy just came in a robe out of the darkness and gave me this." And the story goes that they all immediately agreed, that's what we need. And anyway, you can catch me at heroparanormal.com on YouTube, Rumble, Spotify. I'm on social media like Facebook at Hero Paranormal. And you can keep up with all the crazy, wacky science projects up at spacewolfresearch.com, or also on Facebook, Instagram, and the social medias.
Nice.
Nice.
I got to tell you, Karen, Ryan, once again, I've had an absolute fantastic time hanging out with both of you and talking about all these really cool subjects and topics. I learned a lot today from both of you, but it's all still a mystery. And I have another festival coming up in August 2nd. I have Summer Fun Fest coming up. So there'll be musicians from all over the world coming and hanging out with me and playing at my festival. And also Lisa Noel, who you see in the chat, very good, dear, real life friend of mine. If you go to my channel and you look at my music videos that I have on my channel, they're all original. She is in like probably 10 of my videos. And she is an accomplished stand-up comedian, actor, filmmaker. She has a new series out called Farbie, and I'm actually part of the cast. And we just did a couple songs together on her channel. So if you get a chance, get on over to Lisa Noel and check it out. We just released it a couple days ago. Yours truly is in there schmoozing around with Lisa Noel and in her music video. But other than that, spread love into the universe. And Karen, thank you so much for having me, Ryan. And it's always great to see you, brother. I love your intellect, and I love all your positions on everything. It's absolutely fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. Yes, everybody go over to Lisa Noel and subscribe to her, but also subscribe to Ryan Burns at Hero Paranormal or Space Wolf Research. And of course, Camp Gmail every Saturday night, I think 7 p.m. Pacific time. You're going to have your socks rocked off by some amazing talent and such a great community in the live chat. Just really nice people. And so if you ever find yourself on a Saturday night and you're not going out and you don't have a bunch of plans, kick back with Camp Gmail. I think you'll absolutely love it. And again, follow Ryan Burns. His shows are really thought-provoking. He really does deep dives into everything that we're questioning. So that's pretty wonderful. Where is Ryan Burns' link? Lisa, Ryan Burns' link is going to be below in the description, along with Gary's links and my links. So all the links are there. Thank you again so much for joining us. And I hope you all come back on Sunday for the Aliens and Angels podcast. And again, have your name put in for the draw for the giveaway at the end of June. So I guess that's it for us today. Bye-bye, everybody, and hope you have an awesome week and take good care of yourselves. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye for now. Thank you for joining me for the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change that you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to my YouTube and other channels at Karen Holton TV. Click the like button, leave me a comment, and share this podcast with your friends. Read about my true life ET contact in my book called Transdimensional: Meet the New Neighbors, which is now available in Amazon bookstores worldwide. Check out my website at www.KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com to see my free resources and amazing products and services. All the links will be in the description below. As part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, you will find the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton and also the Aliens and Angels podcast on all audio platforms. Until next time, keep up the good work.